All right, guys, we are live for Sunday afternoon, day 25 of 30. 30 days going live straight in this group, talking about diabetic healthy tips and tricks for living and everything in between. So today, we're talking about counting carbs and figuring out how many carbs are in your meal, whether you're type 1 or type 2, whether you are trying to stick to a certain amount of carbs, or whether you need to know because you're injecting insulin for those carbs. It's going to be important to know. Now, there are different theories on you should also count fat, count protein, count your macronutrients, all these types of things. But today, we're just going to give a quick overview on counting carbs when eating out. So, number one, tips and tricks. It is actually in the United States a law for chain restaurants to have a nutritional facts menu stating the carbs, calories, fats, proteins, all that stuff for everything on their item, or everything on their menu. Every item on their menu. There we go. So if you are at a chain restaurant, say McDonald's, or that's a bad example for a healthy diabetic life, right? If you are, let's say just a very generic one, Chipotle, that's across the whole nation, they are required to have both at the restaurant and on the internet nutritional facts for every item on their menu. Now, I use the internet because when I do go to Chipotle, they allow you to build your burrito bowl, whatever it is, and it tells you the carbs, fats, proteins, and everything for that specific item in a custom manner as you've built it. However, there are smaller restaurants around the nation that are not required by law to have nutritional facts, and those are a little bit more difficult to count because there's no guarantee that what you have is, 20 carbs, 50 carbs, whatever it might be. However, before I go deeper into this, I want to point out that not every dish is going to be the exact same. You might get a chef on Monday at some restaurant, your favorite restaurant, that gives a little bit extra portions, and then a different chef on Friday who gives smaller portions. And because of this, there's not going to be a foolproof way of knowing exactly how many carbs are in your favorite meals at your favorite restaurants, even if it says so in the nutritional facts at their restaurant or on the internet. Today I had a similar experience to this. I was a little bit frustrated. Went to a place that is called True Foods. It's a very great place to eat. It's healthy. It's a chain restaurant. They have nutritional facts on the internet, so I looked it up. Last time we went there, I had perfect blood sugars afterwards, so I attribute that to them counting the carbs in their food. However, today, I think they may have skimped a little bit on my meal because I injected for a large amount of carbohydrates so I could enjoy my meal, and I ended up going low. So with my low blood sugar, I had to consume 20 extra grams of carbs just to stabilize it around 100. So that was frustrating, and that served as a reminder that just because you have bad blood sugars does not mean that's your fault. It's not always going to be your fault. Now, there are cases where it is your fault and you may have messed up, but like today's case, I do believe that they may have not included all the food that was supposed to be there. That's why I had a low blood sugar. But back to how to count carbs in the restaurant. So had I not had the option of finding the carbohydrates online or at the restaurant, there are a few other things you can do. There are some very useful apps such as MyFitnessPal or Calorie King. There's a ton of other ones out there that if you type in into the app what type of food you're eating at which restaurant and what serving size, it'll tell you the carbs, the fats, the proteins, the micronutrients, vitamins and minerals. It gives you all the information. Now you may have to look at a few of the different sections and take an average because there are a few different options typically, but it's a great way to get a ballpark number of the carbohydrates in your meal. Now if you don't have the nutritional information, you don't have the cell phone app, or you don't have your phone for some reason, what is the third option? The third option is to eyeball it. Now when you go out to eat, there are a few common foods that you're going to see in a lot of restaurants. One being rice, one being pasta, one being burgers, and I will tell you, actually, the three that I just listed have very similar carb counts, which is kind of funny. Rice. So if you can eyeball about a cup of rice, that's about 45 grams of carbohydrates. If you have a cup of pasta that's cooked, that's typically about 40 grams of carbohydrates. If you have a hamburger, that's typically around 40 to 50 grams of carbohydrates. Now, of course, these all have different levels of fat content. They have different level of protein content. So carbs are the most important thing for us to count at this point, but is it also important to take into consideration the fats and proteins? I believe it is. I've had great success while counting all the macronutrients and keeping them relatively consistent. However, people have just as good of control just counting carbs. So, number one, chain restaurants will have a either printed out version in store or in the restaurant or online where it will tell you the carbohydrate counts. Number two, you have apps on your phone like MyFitnessPal, Calorie King, a few others that are on there that are great. I forget the names of them, but check out the phone apps for nutritional facts. And number three is eyeball it. If you know how many carbs are in the meal that you are going to go eat, or at least a general idea of how much a cup of those carbs might be, or a cup of that food might be, for example, a cup of pasta is 40 grams of carbohydrates, then you are able to estimate how many carbs are on your plate, and therefore you're able to still have a relatively decent hypothesis on how much you should inject for, or if you are hitting your limits as maybe a type 2 who is trying to not eat too many carbs, you're able to get a guesstimate on that and therefore meet your goals. Hope you guys found this one helpful. This is my Sunday message to you guys for day 25. We have 5 days left. Please let me know what kind of questions you guys have, and I will try to hit your questions in the next 5 days of lives. I look forward to chatting with you guys for the rest of this week. Keep up the fight and have a great night.